Yo, what is up? What's going on, everybody? How's everybody doing? Thank you for tuning in to another D. Elliott Fitness live stream show. Trying to get my microphone fixed right here. Feels a little bit off. Maybe. Up. Are we good? Yeah, we good. How's everybody doing, man? Thank y'all for tuning in today, man. We got a good show going on for you today. It's been a minute since I've been on. Been having some stuff going on, but we had to freaking get this show on the road because I've been trying to put this show together for a minute. It's been taking a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, but with that being said, who really cares? We're going to dive into today's show, so thank y'all for tuning in. Thank y'all for being here. Just to let you know, we are multi-streaming on Twitch, Kick, YouTube, and Rumble. If you're on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button right there. It's going to get the algorithm out. If you hit the like button, it's greatly appreciated. On YouTube, Twitch, Kick, and Rumble, give your boy a follow. Be greatly appreciated. Want to contribute to today's show? Cash App and the Venmo is right there. Cash App Daniel2888, Venmo Danny-Daniel-00 to contribute to today's show for sure. And we have a good show lined up for you today. Normally I would go over 3 topics, but we're only going to be able to go over 1 today because it's probably going to take me the little bit of time that I do have today because it's kind of pressed for time. But we still going to make it happen and still going to get it done for you for sure. In which, if you saw the thumbnail title, we're going to go over and see exactly what's been going on. And I've been looking into something that's been kind of sparking my interest as of lately, and it's been the discussion that I've been looking into, or the research that I've been doing, looking into the USSR and the Bolshevik Revolution, on what had been happening, what had been going on over the years of what said situation had taken place. And when I look more into it, I can't help but just notice the sparking similarities, as well as a lot of stuff that I look up and come into that just kind of shows me that, like, we are prepped and primed to be the next one to potentially get done like that. Not in the exact same manner, but pretty freaking close to it. So yeah. So with what I found and with what I've seen, we're going to dive into it and see exactly what I found. Am I right? Because I believe I'm right. Because when I look at everything and I see what's going on, looking back at that time, during that time of existence in life, there were 2 superpowers, the United States and the USSR. So when you look at both of those, and then you kind of dive in to see how USSR became a power, and then when it fell and why it fell and all this, you start to kind of notice, if you look in the background, you'll be able to see what pushed it, what drove it, what caused it, and then when it fell, and then what happened when it fell on the other side of the world. So when it went from the East, then simultaneously, what happened in the West? Like clockwork. So when I look at all this stuff and I put it all together, I have to ask myself, like, is this really like a blueprint being laid out? Because we've been warned by a bunch of people that told us about this stuff over time, and every time you get the history and understanding of it, you get like some of it. I've came across some stuff where it spoke about the revolutions. It was very vague and very like, oh, it was a good thing they went in, they did this. But then I went to some stuff that went into detail about it. They talked about it, and they was like, yo, like, shit got real. So I'm going to go into it and give you my synopsis on it and put together all of the stuff that I came up with and came together with. I'm going to look at stuff and read stuff off with you so you can see exactly what it is that I found, to get a good understanding, to see if what I'm putting together and piecing together, does all this make sense? Because to me, when I look at it, I'm like, it makes sense to me. So it seems like what we're speaking on holds a lot of weight. So we have to go over it and we have to go through it. So with that being said, let's go ahead and dive into the economy segment of the show. So we're only going to be able to do 1 segment of the show. Normally I do fitness, economy, and AI, but we're just going to hit economy today, which is going to take us over this topic. Like I said, I got an hour and a half to put all this together, and I think that'll be enough time for me to not rush through it and get it all put together and all spoken to and all like compiled together into one. Because when I look at all of this, it's really intriguing, because if you've ever studied the USSR and how it even became a USSR and looked at the Bolshevik Revolution and got an understanding of that, when you look at all of it together, number one, it's hella interesting. Number two, you're going to wonder, like, why the hell you didn't learn about this in school? You know what I mean? And then number three, when you look at everything, you piece it together, you can't help but notice, like, it has a very eerie similarity, but you have to peel back layers to find out what's true and what's not. So we're going to dive into it. We're going to look at it. So with that being said, let's go ahead and just dive into the economy of the economy segment of the show. So let's go.
Welcome to the economy segment of the show. Enjoy.
There we go. All right. So let's go ahead and get this thing cracking. So before we get started, let's go ahead and get a synopsis and a brief understanding as to what exactly this freaking Bolshevik revolution is. So with that being said, we're gonna watch a little short, and we're gonna see exactly what this is all about. All right. So let's take a look and just give you an understanding of what it is, starting with the beginning. So the beginning is we start in 1917-ish. At least that's when the revolution started. And the USSR became something because of that revolution. And then the USSR ended up falling in 1991. But then also there's also like some prehistory before the 1917 Bolshevik Revolution as well. So we're going to just give you an idea of what this thing is first. Then we're going to take a timeline back, and we're going to go over everything. And I'm going to put my case together to see if what I'm seeing and what I'm understanding, does it seem like we're about to do part two over here in America? Because as you can tell, like, America it's not doing too well. Let's just call a spade a spade. It's not doing 100% well. You know, it's like the last most capitalist place that you can go to in the world. I mean, there's other places that's capitalist as well, but like it's when you look at the two superpowers at the time, like I said, it was who was it? It was USSR and America. And it kind of makes you wonder, like, with these places being two superpowers, was there a coup or a plot to take them both down at some point? Or was one utilized as a, when we say, like a prerequisite or a test ground to conquer the other one? Because it's a lot that goes into it. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and look this up real quick right here. Superpowers. Let's go ahead and just look that word up real quick. So right here we got superpowers. Superpowers was the United States and the Soviet Union. The United States and the Soviet Union, they emerged as two world superpowers after World War II. They characterized by their unrivaled political, economic, and military strength, which led to a prolonged period of tension and competition known as the Cold War. So USA and USSR post-World War II superpower emergence. The United States and the Soviet Union emerged as two superpowers after World War II. So they had, you know, the strength, the military force, the economic power, and everything. Now, and the thing was, it was replacing the former great powers like Britain and France. So these two emerged as a superpower, replacing Britain and France. So as we see that right there, to understand why they were a superpower. And then one got taken down. Okay. But we have to understand why and how it looked like why one got taken down. And just to start it all off, let's go ahead and just dive directly into what the Bolshevik Revolution was. So let's go ahead and take this short right here, and we're going to let them take it away. So here we go. Let's start here at the very beginning. Let's go.
You've certainly heard of the Bolsheviks, but who are they? The Bolsheviks were Vladimir Lenin's supporters in the early 20th century. Guided by Marxist ideology, they believed in the need to bring about a revolution to free the working people from the yoke and exploitation of the capitalists. Then, through socialism, they would achieve a fairer society. After the 1917 Russian Revolution, the Bolsheviks took power. Led by Lenin, they established the dictatorship of the proletariat and founded the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. The economy, the press, education, and government institutions came under the control of the party, which had absolute power over society. The Bolsheviks were the hegemonic political force in the Soviet Union until its dissolution in 1991.
Okay, so as you get an idea of what it is, they made it sound really nice. I mean, they sure did leave out a lot, but they give you the gist of it. They gave you the gist of exactly how it works and what it is. Why am I hearing my voice being played? Give me 1 second. Okay. There we go. My phone was tripping. So just to get that taken care of real quick. Anyhow, so with that being said, we're going to take a look and look at the history. So before the Bolshevik Revolution happened, there was a situation that came to. We have to figure out exactly why it even came to be a thing in the first place. So at the beginning of it, you had the group of people that went together and put together a council, and they wanted to go ahead and come in, and they felt like it was the right time to strike and to basically bring about a socialist regime. They wanted to bring a socialist regime. Now, even though Russia at the time was doing its thing, it was said that they didn't have a very strong government. They had a military. They had a large military. They had a really big military, but it wasn't very strategic. It had poor leadership. They had poor leadership. It was very huge, like 1.3, 1.5 million troops or something like that. But it just wasn't. It's kind of like the movie 300, like Leonidas and Xerxes. If you've seen the movie, you understand what I mean. So it was kind of like that. Like they just didn't have a well put together army or whatever. It just the military wasn't good. So the Communist Socialist Party, which then leads you to communists, is like socialism is like a segue into communism, basically. But everybody will argue with you on that. They saw an opportunity. They saw an opportunity to come in and tear down the capitalist society, which sounds kind of familiar with America now. You have people who hate capitalism with a passion, and they're welcome in socialism, which we saw with Zoran Mondani. And I think there's another dude in Minnesota who's potentially doing the same thing, if I'm not mistaken. But with this, they had this going on. Now we'll go ahead and look at a guy named Lenin. He was one of the alleged leaders in the introduction of getting this revolution started in 1917. So we're going to take a look at this guy. I forget his name. Something Lenin. He was one of the leaders who got foot and started off the revolution that happened on October 1917. He started this thing off, and then it turned out to be a very bad bloodbath. But let's take a look back as to who this dude is a little bit to give you an idea. We just saw him in one thing, but let's take a look back to go a little bit before it, and then we'll go ahead and get a little bit of the history as to what led us up to this point. So let's go ahead and take a look at him right here, and let's get this going. So here we go.
In 1903, at a congress in Brussels, he splits the Social Democratic Party by forming a faction of Bolsheviks, a non-conciliatory wing that promotes a hard class struggle by any means necessary. It is from them that the all-powerful Communist Party will emerge after the revolution. 2 years later, in 1905, the first Russian Revolution comes after the great protests in which Tsarist soldiers and policemen kill hundreds of people in St. Petersburg. After it, Tsar Nicholas II must give up his unlimited power and impose unprecedented civil liberties on Russia. Most of the public is satisfied, but Lenin is not. His dream revolution looks very different.
All right, so his dream revolution looks pretty different, is what they say right there. So, and it did. I must say, his dream revolution ended up looking pretty different. And let me tell you, with the research and studies that I found, it looked pretty freaking horrible, I might add, for sure. So let's see. We'll go back here first. So we'll go back to what they were talking about. So first, we're going to go back to this, and then we're going to take a step back after this. So first, we're going to start off with about. They were talking about the Russian. They had a Russian Socialist Democratic Labor Party. Okay, so that's what they were trying to implement first. They were the predecessors of the Communist Party that was led in the Soviet Union. So what they had to do was they had to be able to get enough support to basically make this thing happen. Before 1917 became a thing, they had to try to get this thing to. They had to put this group together. So this was before the Bolsheviks were the Bolsheviks. You know what I mean? Because it was a winners and losers, and the winners became known as the Bolsheviks, and the losers became known as the what is it? The Mensheviks. So you have Bolsheviks and Mensheviks, so winners and losers. So they had to come together to basically come as a group, as a party, to basically put together what it was that they wanted to accomplish. They had two different ideologies, okay? So the winners, the Bolsheviks, had the socialist idea, and the Mensheviks basically had like a more of a capitalist idea in a way, trying to fix the capitalism in the country. And they were, already some like richer, well off, but they wanted to kind of fix it what it was. But the Bolsheviks had it. Basically, they was like, no, we're going to come in here and state rule. We're going to mob rule this, and we're going to take it over in a different manner. They're going to bring in socialism. So they're going to completely alter the whole structure of the regime of the society. The society is going to change completely. To go from a capitalist society to a socialist society is a big change. It's a big change. It's not something you do that's small. It's a big deal. So making that happen, they had to figure out how they were going to get it done. So I'll show you right here, and this is what it is right here. So it shows that this was to become the Central Committee. It had rights to decide, with the exception of the local ones. So the group, which was supported the establishment of a Central Committee in Second Congress, they called themselves the Bolsheviks. And then you had the losers, which called themselves the Mensheviks. Okay, now with the losers by their own leader, his name was Julius Martov. All right, this guy right here, Julius Martov. Okay, can you say Mazel Tov? Okay, this guy right here. Now, wittingly enough, he turned out to be Vladimir Lenin. Vladimir Lenin, this dude right here by face, I'll show you. Vladimir Lenin was the leader of the Bolsheviks, all right, in 1917. So he won this Russian Social Democratic Labor Party. He won it, and then he named it the Bolsheviks. And the other guy was a loser, and he named his the Mensheviks, right? So this guy was a loser. And then this guy, Vladimir Lenin, he had the Bolsheviks. Now, it behooves you to know that these two, they were cool with each other. They were cool with each other. They turned out to end up being friends in some shape, form, or fashion, right? They end up being cool with one another. So it was almost like, like, did you really lose? Or were y'all just kind of playing like some kind of, agenda role on the front and back end of things? And when you learn about this dude, you learn about him, who Julius Martov was. He turns out what he was basically a Russian revolutionary. He was a minority faction of the Russian Social Democratic Labor Party. He was a close friend and collaborator of Lenin. He was close in the early years of their revolutionary careers, and he became his chief rival after the split of his Second Congress in 1903. But still, that's your homie. At the end of the day, you can call him a rival all you want. You're probably mad because you lost, but like at the end of the day, like you still cool with him. Y'all not gonna fall off that hard. Allegedly, I would say I don't think he fell off that much. I wouldn't think so. All right, so then it shows here that after the shadow of the Second International deepened the divisions in Russian social democracy, Martov immediately adopted a staunch internationalist position, denouncing the wars as imperialist conflict and opposing social patriotism and those socialists who supported their national government. He became a central figure in anti-war movements, and he was the co-editor with Leon Trotsky. Okay, so Leon Trotsky was also somebody else who was basically on Lenin's side. So this dude, who is Martov, who was the loser against Lenin when they went to go ahead and bring their proposal on if they would have a revolution under socialism or if they would move forward trying to fix the capitalism, he ends up co-editing newspaper and media sources with somebody who is cool with and that's on Lenin's side, which is it's crazy. Now, coincidentally, what's really interesting is that Martov and the other guy, Leon Trotsky, I can't say his name, Trotsky, they are both of newish heritage. They're both newish people. All right, they are both newish. Okay, so even though they may somewhat have different views. They're both newish. Now, what ends up happening is when you dive deeper and you look into it, you kind of start to notice that there's a whole lot of Russian and newish stuff going on. There's a lot of newish people in Russian, interaction going on. But the people who are newish, they took really good political positions in this situation. When you start to dive deeper, you start to notice when you see newish people, they're in prominent positions politically. They played the political well. They placed themselves in strategic areas during this Bolshevik revolution. Now, before we dive all the way into the Bolshevik revolution, let's take one more step back and let's get an understanding of the history and the timeline between the Russians and the newish. Okay, we have to look at it because it plays a big role, because there's also a conspiracy theorist that goes on where you have the Bolshevik revolution, and then there's a conspiracy theorist where they say that there's a newish Bolshevism that happened. So it's almost like two different stories, but they're going the same direction, but they're two different stories, because it's saying that basically it's saying that the Bolshevik revolution was led by Lenin, and he did what he did as far as took over the capitalist party and implemented socialism. But then you have the Jewish Bolshevism, which is somewhat the same story. However, with that story, what you end up getting is you get in it's an anti-Semitic and an anti-communistic conspiracy theory, and it claims the Russian revolutions of 1917 was a newish plot, and that the Jews controlled the Soviet Union, and it was the international communist movement. Now, this is the crazy thing, and it's even written right here. It says, often in furtherance of a plan to destroy Western civilization. So whenever you hear about the newish Bolshevism, they say that it's a conspiracy theory, but it was also could be also a plan that was furthermore, or a furtherance of a plan to destroy the Western civilization. So they're saying that this alleged conspiracy theories of a newish Bolshevism, if I said that right, it was a part of, or it was still part of the Russian Revolution, but the angles were different. You know what I mean? It was coming from two different people. I mean, they were doing the same thing, but the way the story is presented, it's different, because it says that the newish had an agenda as opposed to the Russians having Russian issues. You know what I mean? Now, when you hear that and you get two different stories, you have to dive in and figure out, okay, why is this? Why am I getting two different stories? This doesn't make any sense. And what's crazy is that when you've been alive long enough, you kind of can't help but notice that a lot of conspiracy theories over time, just gonna call a spade, but conspiracy theories turned out to be true. I mean, they have. A lot of them turned out to be true. However, we're going to dive in and take a look at a timeline. So I found a timeline, and this timeline is going to take us back. Let me find it. Where's the timeline that we have? So it's a timeline that takes us all the way back, and it has a history of newish people and Russians. And to see exactly what the issue, or what the time that was going on with newish people and Russians. And we got to see if there was if there was anything going on between these two people. If it was, well, and potentially there could have been some revenge going on, you know what I mean? And I wouldn't put it past, because this is it makes sense, because when you look at banking, newish people are really good at banking. They're good at banking because they've already had a history of predatory lending called usury. It's just a well-known thing in banking, and newish people, they're really good hustlers. I mean, granted, they might have done some backdoor things to get to where they are, but they be hustling their ass off. But there are some backdoor things that come with that as well. But let's take a look at the history between the newish people and the Russians to see if there's a potential chance that the conspiracy theorist is just a made up theory, or if it can actually hold some weight to it as we proceed forward with this understanding of the Bolshevik Revolution. All right. So what I have right here is I have this. All right, let me see. Oh, you can't see it. Let's zoom in. Let's go up. So I have the U's or the newest people in Russia and Soviet Union. Chronology of events from 1727 to 1992. Okay. So we have the newest people in Russia and the Soviet Union. Chronology of events 1727 to 1992. So let's go ahead and go in, and we'll go ahead and we'll take a look, and we'll see exactly what this is all about. So it says it's detailed in the following chronology. Throughout Russian and Soviet history, the Jewish population was subject of official policies of isolation, control of forced assimilation, successive newish policies, and I don't want to read too much of it because then they'll mess around and YouTube is funny. Successive U.S. policies were influenced by a number of factors, including general religious and national policies, external consideration, and the personal traits of leadership of the time. In the late 15th century, for example, Tsar Ivan IV the Terrible, from 1533 to 1584, imposed a series of residential restrictions on the Jewish population. This policy was echoed in Catherine II's creation of the Jewish Pale in the 1790s, and later Stalin's effort at population control. At the same time, because the leaders were usually unclear as their intentions to the country's Jews, legislation was often inconsistent from regime to regime, and even during the same administration. Popular or grassroots anti-Semitism has also shaped the history of Russia's Soviet Jewry, at times erupting into violent pogroms. Okay? And pogroms are, well, what are pogroms? Pogroms were like violent situations that came up. So they were like violent episodes that happened, basically. I'll dive into it here in a second. Such episodes appear to be more likely during periods of political and economic turmoil, and according to one interpretation, when nationalist organizations are political allies of government. All right, so we have that there. Let's take a look at what a pogrom is real quick. So pogrom is basically an organized massacre of a particular ethnic group, in particular that of Jewish people in Russia or Eastern Europe in the late 19th and 17th century. So seems like the Russians and the Jews have always had beef. They were always dealing with stuff. They were always, going at it with each other. All right. So as we look at the chronology, so I say that word right. You can see right here. Let me fix this. Right here. So we got 1727. So we got Catherine I. She orders all Jews expelled from Russia, although to what extent is unclear. All right, so in 1742, Elizabeth I reorders the expulsion of the Jews, although she makes an exception for those willing to convert to Russian Orthodoxy. Elizabeth applied the policy more strictly than her predecessor, according to one report. 35,000 Jews were expelled between 1742 and 53. So then we got 1772, 93, and 1795. The partitioning of Poland among Russia, Prussia, and Austria brings 900,000 new Jewish people into the Russian Empire. Because of the increased population, expulsion is no longer seen as a viable solution to the Jewish question. Okay, so they came back with a vengeance. In the 1790s, Catherine II creates a Pale of Settlement, which stretches from the Baltic to the Black Sea in the western part of the empire. Jewish people are forbidden to live outside of this area, so they cannot live outside of the Pale of Settlement. Okay, they can't live outside of it. Interesting. 1804, particularly December 9th, Alexander I introduces the regulations regarding the Jewish. The existence of the Pale is reaffirmed, although some Jews are permitted to leave for limited periods while local political rights are curtailed. Jews are permitted to send their children to any school in the empire. Jews are encouraged to voluntarily enter the field of agriculture. By the same time, 200 to 300,000 Jews are ordered expelled from Pale villages. The latter order is repealed in 1808. Okay, so as we see, so for some reason, this is between the Russians and the Jewish people. There's a battle going on between these two, and they're going at it. So 1821 to 25, Alexander becomes more conservative. Jewish are expelled from the countryside along the western frontier. So it's like, golly. 1825 to 1855, Nicholas I passes a series of regulations governing Jewish life. Jews are recruited into the military for the first time in 1827. The government attempts to abolish the Kahal, which is a Jewish community administration, in 1844, although this proves impossible to implement. The broadest legislative initiative, the Jewish regulations of 1835, serve as the legal basis for the direction of Jewish affairs until 1917. Interesting. The Jewish regulations of May 1835 serve as the legal basis for the direction of the Jewish affairs until 1917. Now, 1917 was the day of the revolution, okay? The Pale is reduced in size and precisely defined. Jewish are required to register with authorities under fixed family names. Jewish leaving the country without permission forfeit their nationality and are not permitted to return. So it's like they are putting these people on the ball lock and key. I mean, but if you're going to be in a society, I think that would potentially make sense, but I don't know if they're being singled out or what, but whatever. But this is just the timeline between Russians and Jewish. So 1855 to 1881, in the early years of Alexander II's reign, his regime is characterized by relatively liberal policies, including those dealing with the country's Jewish populations, and some residential and educational restrictions previously imposed on Jews are removed, okay? 81 to 82, Alexander II is assassinated. And then it brings his son, Alexander III, to the throne and ushers in an era of repression and reaction for the whole population. At the same time, popular anti-Semitism is on the increase. Over this 2-year period, anti-Jewish violence is reported in more than 200 Jewish settlements. The question would be why? But we don't know. So in 1882, the government establishes a series of temporary regulations to administer the Jewish population. They remain in force until 1917. Again, 1917 again. So these regulations, they were in force until 1917. According to these regulations, later known as the May Laws, Jews are forbidden to settle, build, or purchase houses or own or use land outside of the cities and towns of the Pale, or to conduct trade on Christian holidays. Wow. Okay. So, I mean, if you're a Jew, they got it in for you. If you're a Jewish person, they had it in for you. So it's almost like whatever issue was going on between the Jewish and the Russians, it seemed like at some point, if they had an opportunity to get revenge, I would say that it would be viable. It would be understandable. 1880s to 1890s, the government of Alexander and his successor Nicholas II continued to restrict the lives of the Jewish population. A quota system is established, limiting the number of Jewish entrants to academic institutions. Jews are expelled from the country's major cities such as Moscow, St. Petersburg, and Kharkov. I think I said that right. Kharkov. 1897. The residential restrictions appears to have been successful in concentrating the U.S. population. The 1897 census revealed that 94% of the empire's Jewish people live in the Pale. The 4.9 million Jews in the Pale, wow, account for 11.6% of the area's population. Elsewhere, Jews account for less than 0.5% of the country's total population of 85 million. The Jewish Bund is established, a union of Jewish socialist groups. The party is the first to lobby for general political demands, as well as interests of Jewish workers. A number of other political parties are formed by Jews around this time. Interesting. So in 1897, a union of Jewish social groups, the party is the first to lobby for general political demands as well as the interests of Jewish workers. All right, so we're getting closer. In 1903, anti-Jewish violence suffers again in the Pale. One of the most violent groups occurred in Kishinev, Moldova, on April 6 and 7 in 1903. More than 40 Jews were unalived and hundreds others were wounded. Smaller towns such as Semela, Rovno, and whatever these are affected, as is the major Jewish center of Odessa. Same year in August, September, first of what was later to be known as the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion are serialized in the publications of the Znamia, claiming to prove that Jews are involved in a conspiracy to dominate the globe. They are actually forgeries prepared with the help of the Russian Secret Service. Okay. All right. So now they're saying that the Russians faked a document claiming that they're trying to dominate the world. Now that's, I don't know, man. That one seems tough to believe. That seems hard to believe. I don't know about that. I really don't know. That sounds like you're battling with somebody and you create a whole fake document and put it out against your enemy. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know if you've ever read that document too. If you've ever wrote the if you've ever sat down and found it and read the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, you really have to ask yourself, like, did somebody really just make this up, bro? Like, you really would have to ask yourself, like, because if you've ever read it and you ever looked at it and you've seen it, you have to really wonder, like, I mean, I just don't see somebody sitting down with the enemy and even using their lingo, even using the words that they use as far as like the slang terminology. I'm just like, I don't see it. I just don't see it. Anyway, in 1905, a new series of pogroms erupt at the same time. Dang, again, they won't leave these people alone. And we're only getting one side. We don't know what the other side is, but we're just seeing one side of it. 1905, the revolution against the government of Tsar Nicholas II. The chief organizer of the pogroms are the members of the League of the Russian People, founded in 1904, and its members are commonly known as the Black Hundreds. So the same year in October, Nicholas II is forced to establish a constitution in response to the 1905 revolution. The short-lived October Manifesto promised to bestow civil liberties to the Russian people, although there is no mention of equality before the law or equal rights for the country's nationalities. So in 1906, the pogrom in Bialystok, in which 80 people are unalive, marks the end of 3 years of sporadic anti-Jewish violence. All right, we're getting closer. 1911 to 1913. The anti-Semitic tenure of the period is characterized by a number of blood libel cases. One of the most famous is the 2-year trial of the Mendel Beilis, who was charged with the unaliving of a Christian boy. The trial is showcased by the authorities to illustrate the perfidy of the Jewish population. Wow. Okay. Plot thickens. Now, it's interesting that they say that he's charged with the unaliving of a Christian boy. They don't just say like a Russian person. They say a Christian boy. Like, he was picked out because of his religion, not because of his culture or his nationality or whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean? So that's pretty particular. 1915. In the face of the oncoming German army, the government begins to expel thousands of Jews from the empire's border areas, which coincide with the Pale of Settlement. Okay, here we go. Here we go. On February through March 1917, a popular revolution brings a liberal provisional government to power. So they got some liberal government in. On March 21st and April 3rd, the government removes all discrimination based upon ethnic, religious, grounds. The Pale is officially abolished. The removal of the restrictions on the U's geographical mobility and education opportunities lead to a migration to the country's major city. Oh boy. Okay, so now they fought and they got in where they fit in. All right. Now, where was it previously? What did we read? They were given like geographical because remember the geographical restrictions was up until 1917, but we got here and the U's, what did they do? They set up something. What year was it that they set up? They set up, and the U's finally set up their, I don't know if I can find it. Let's see. Be successful. What did they do? I'm trying to find it. The first of what are later known as a new series. No, because remember, I had read something that mentioned that they had put together their first like political group. There it is right here. In 1897, the Jewish Bund, the General League of Jewish Working Men, is established, a union of Jewish socialist groups. This party is the first to lobby for general political demands as well as the interests of Jewish workers. So they did that 1897. Now in 1917, a popular revolution brings a liberal provisional government to power. And then the government removed all the discrimination based upon it, abolished the Pale so they can move anywhere they want to now. All right, so remember, all right, here we go. So on February 27th to March 12th, 1917, that's when everything got lifted for the U's. Okay, everything is lifted now. It's like y'all can go where y'all want to go. There's nothing blocking your education. You can migrate wherever you want to. There's no discrimination based upon any religion or social or anything. All right, here we go. October 1917, the Bolshevik Party seizes power from the faltering provisional government, the same government that removed all the discrimination. The Bolshevik Party seizes power from that faltering government. And then it says Lenin and Stalin, the current and future leaders, both deny the concept of Jewish nationality and believe that the Jewish population should be assimilated. At the same time, Lenin sees anti-Semitism as not only theoretically contrary to egalitarianism, but also as a hindrance to the assimilation process. In November 15th, the new Bolshevik government proclaims its Declaration of the Rights of the People's Nation of Russia, promising all nationalities the rights of equality, self-determination, and secession. Jews are not specifically mentioned in the declaration, reflecting Lenin's view that the Jews do not constitute a nation. Okay. 1918. I guess they abbreviated it now from something I read earlier. The FSR Council of Ministry issues a decree on the separation of church from state and school from church. Oh no. The decree deprives religious communities of the status of what is that word? Juridical persons, the right to own property, and the right to enter into contracts. Oh my God, let me read that again. The decree deprives religious communities of the status of, I think it should say judicial. That doesn't say judicial. Or it says juridical persons, the right to own property and the right to enter into contracts. The property of religious communities is nationalized. Religious tuition in education establishment is banned. Religion can now be taught or studied only in private. Wow. All right. I mean, now this is we're in 1918. 1917, the Jews got free. The Commissariat for Jewish National Affairs is established as a subsection of the Commissariat for Nationality Affairs. It is mandated to establish that the dictatorship of the proletariat in the Jewish streets and attract the Jewish masses to regime while advising local and central institutions on Jewish issues. The Commissariat is also expected to fight the influence of Zionist and Jewish socialist parties. Good luck with that. All right, so right there, as far as this goes, I'm going to stop here at 1918 because it goes all the way down to 1992. I don't want to go that far. We're going to stop at 1918. So we got a little backstory. What had been going on between the Jews and the Russians, okay, which was leading us up to where we were heading to. So as we go back to this right here, where we at? We go back to where is that thing at? The thing that is called the, oh dang it, where is it? I just had it. We're gonna go over to what was called the, was it the council? No, it was the no, not the Republican. The, where'd it go? I just had it. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Where were revolutions? No. Opposition. Here we go. No, that's not it. Oh, if I go back, there it is. Jesus, I had it wrong. So now if we go back to this right here shows the background from 1898 to 1917. This was the founding Congress of the Russian Socialist Democratic Labor Party. This right here led the decision of moving forward with the Bolsheviks revolution. Now that we know now that after reading the history from 1727 up to 1917, as you can see, we could see that there was issues going on between the Russians putting strict strategic like clamps on the Jewish people, like really hard. And as soon as stuff got lifted, and I'm not saying that anybody, I'm not blaming nobody for anything. Like I said, there was a conspiracy theorist that they said that there was a Jewish Bolshevism. So I'm just kind of like tying one and two together. Because remember, we also have this right here, the Jewish Bolshevism, which they say is the conspiracy theorists that claim that the Russian revolutions of 1917 was a Jewish plot and that the Jews control the Soviet Union, often in furtherance of a plan to destroy Western civilization. I'm like, bruh, come on. All right, so I'm just putting those two things together, all right? So now we have this. So now we know that when they came in to make this decision, there was a lot riding on this. There's a lot riding on this. You know what I mean? There was a lot riding on this. And to be fair, in 1897, remember, the Jewish had established their first socialist workers union thingy. They established their little first workers union thingy, which I showed you right here in 1897. Right here, they a union of Jewish socialist groups, the party is the first to lobby for general political demands, as well as the interests of Jewish workers. A number of other political parties are formed by the Jews around this time in 1898, right? In 1897. In 1898 through 1917, which 1917 was the lift date, they had this right here. So then the Bolsheviks was formed. And one of the losers was the Mensheviks, but the Bolsheviks won. So as soon as the Bolsheviks won, and there was a, you know, if we look into the Bolsheviks, as we see right here, there's a group of them right here. Now, if we go in and we were to dive in deep and look at these people right here, we will probably find within this party of Bolsheviks, a few of them are Jewish. A few of them. Now, I don't know how many there are as far as in this room. I mean, if I read this in this room, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So be 10. So there'll be 10 Jewish people. What up? What up? What up? What's going on? Thank you. I appreciate it. Mr. Bewar. What up? What up? So if we look at this picture right here, I think this has 10 people. They say from left to right, they list 10 people right here. Now, out of those 10 people, I'm going to guess, because I looked at some of them, but it's probably like, I'll do some cool, appreciate it. Not right now. Within these people right here, probably like 4 or so are Jewish. Now, it doesn't take a lot to move the needle. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't take a lot of people to come together to change something. You know what I mean? It really don't take a lot. For example, like in the world of dating, as we all see right now, right? In the world of dating, we look at dating right now. If 20 to 30% of women decided to go the harlot route, right? If they just went just straight the harlot route off the deep end, they're like, we ain't get married. We're just gonna go out here and fornicate and you know, have fun, you know, and do whatever we want and be 304s. That's a big number to change the dating market for the rest of the 70 to 80% of people. That's a big deal. Like, that can change dramatically the way people interact with each other. That's a big change. It doesn't take a lot. It's just like the Bible. You know, when you had Satan at war, it was Satan took a third of the angels with him, which means that it was like a third versus 66%. You know what I mean? It was 33% of bad fighting 66% of good. So you saw, you know, the amount of fight and battle that one could cause. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't take much to move the needle into one direction. It doesn't. So when we look at this and we also imply, or if we were to take that conspiracy theory into logic or into consideration, it's almost like, and we take the background. We take the background from 1727 to now, it will make a lot of sense as to why the Jewish people would want to cause a revolution. Now, from learning what I've learned and knowing what I know, reading different books and things like that, it's always been a way for Jewish people. They move a certain way, and I'm only saying this just from, you know, things that I've looked at and things that I study, and I'll show you what I mean right here. When it comes to their religion is a big deal. So right here, if you look at the conversion right now, because, you know, if a Jew were to convert from their religion, let's say for Islam, for example, if you do a conversion of Jews to Islam, according to Judaism, the Jews that voluntarily convert to Islam, they commit a treacherous act of heresy, abandoning the Torah. Okay? There is a view held by this person right here that a Jew should be prepared to take his own life rather than to convert to another religion. But also known as whatever this word is, it expresses it is not necessary that a Jew takes his own life if he is forced to convert, but privately follows the Torah. Okay? So even if they do convert, they can still blend in, but in private still follow their own still follow their own thing. So on the outside, it looks like they rock with you, but in private, they don't. So in a sense, you think you got a friend, but you really have a traitor in your corner. I'm just speaking on these are facts that are stated. In private, they'll still do their thing, but in public, they'll look like they convert with you. You know what I mean? And things like that we've seen in the music industry, like record executives and stuff like that. You think like these people are all cool with the hip hop artists and the rappers, but only later come to find out like they realize like this person don't give two shits about me. I don't care if I live or if I die. Like they like the artist comes to find that out later on. They realize like this person does not care about me at all. Like they focus on what their agenda is at all times. And a lot of the times, a lot of the big record companies usually end up being owned by Jewish people. It's just what it is. Like you end up learning that on the back end after, all these years go by, you start to find out, you start to see like, oh, that's what, like, okay. So you've seen this play out a bunch of times. You've seen this play out a bunch of times. So it would make sense when you see the history between the Russians and the Jews, it go the way it goes. And then as soon as they got the opportunity, things change. You know what I mean? And they were able to get into political positions and make moves and put themselves in political spots and be able to make political decisions to change things in the benefit of their policies and social and turn everything into socialism. Because remember, when we looked at their the union was a socialist union. The union was a socialist union. Like I said, socialism is just like one step into communism. It's just like the next step. It's like, hey, we're here. Socialism, communism steps in. Communism looks at you and it's like, oh, y'all got it? We good? We here? They're like, all right, move out the way. We're finna go ahead and lay the smack down on these fools. That's what's gonna happen. They gonna lay the hammer down. So now that we got up to speed on that, now we can take a look at exactly how. I can't go into too much depth with this because it's pretty. It gets violent. It gets violent. I don't mean to laugh. It's not funny, but it gets grimy when you kind of look at it from this. But whenever you look at what actually happened, what actually goes down with this revolution, it gets really bad. But we're gonna take a look at some of the. Here's what some people said when it came down to having communism into their country. This one guy's going to explain to you what it was like when communism came into the country and how it was ran. So this is to give you an idea to hear people express and talk about it. So when you hear socialism and communism, you always want to hear about how other people explain it. And I'm going to have two people explain it. I'm going to have this dude back in like an old time explain it. Then I'm going to have another guy who was from, I think it's from Cuba. He's going to explain it. But you're going to see that at the end of the day, it was never a good thing. So when you hear socialism, think communism, this is the situation, this is the circumstances these people are under. All right. So got this clip from this video I'm going to show you. Listen to what this guy says when he speaks about how communism works. All right. So let's take a look. And this is a part of going into the Bolshevik Revolution. All right. So here we go.
Communism, after all, was about equality and harmony. There was nothing wrong with the idea itself. Well, actually, there was.
Initially, when communists come to power, and that doesn't matter where, let it be in Russia, in Poland, in Cuba, in Nicaragua, it doesn't matter, in China, initially they destroy about 10% of population, and that's very specific. This is used not just to kill enemies, they're not enemies, it's to restructure the fabric of society. It's a social engineering. Top intellectuals, best workers, best engineers, they would kill them all. And then they will try to restructure the new society.
So that makes perfect sense. It's a means to restructure society, right? Because if you think about it, when we just looked at the timeline, the society, the way it was structured previously, the Jews was catching hell. They were catching complete hell. They kept having pogroms, being attacked with pogroms. They kept having strict geographical locations. All this stuff was going on. So when they had that Pale Settlement, there you go. The Pale Settlement was put on them. It lasted till 1917. As soon as it gets taken off, ironically, this situation happens. I'm not blaming it on anybody. I'm just adding up numbers. Like when you look at these numbers, it's like, oh, it's not looking too good on how this is playing out. These numbers don't look too good. So he's basically saying that, once you get it in, so it turns out really bad. Now, one thing with the Bolshevik Revolution was that it was not a good thing. It was horrible. It was very, very horrible. Let me read some of the stuff off to you on possibly what happened in these Bolshevik revolutions. Now, prior to going into the Bolshevik Revolution, or not prior to, but going into the Bolshevik Revolution, one of the big things that does happen going into it was, where is it? Where are you ladies at? Where y'all at? Where you? There you are. Going into it, right? You have a very, 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 very violent and bloody revolution. It was one of the worst in history, up there with the little mustache man. That's how bad it was. That's just to give you an idea. The Bolshevik Revolution was just as bad, if not worse, than the little mustache man. And they came in, they did what they did. When they did what they did, they were able to take it, change that whole structure of society. Because remember, he said when communism comes in, that guy just said, 10% of people got to go off top. Intellectuals, smart people, whatever. They said they have to go because they're trying to restructure and change the society completely. And there's a very, 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 very violent ordeal that happens. Then after that, Lenin was still in place for the next till like 1922 or 1924 or something like that. Once all that happens, then that leads you to be able to structure the USSR. Now, while all that's going on, you also have women. Okay, you have women. Is this the woman right here? Yeah, you have women who have a change in their society. And of course, the women are happy to get rights and stuff like that. They're always happy. Now, let's take a look at what happens with women inside of a under Lenin's society. Now, let's take a look at how things worked out for women while this was going on. This is important to take a look at, because you have to tie it in to how things look in the U.S. right now, because it's pretty crazy when you tie these two things together. What we just looked at, and how bad things are, and how bad things have gotten with the Bolshevik Revolution, how they able to come over and they came in and they just annihilated, slaughtered people completely and turned everything into a socialist government rule where you don't own jack. You know what I mean? You don't own anything. Real quick, before I show this, let me show you this other video I meant to show you by the Cuban guy. Let me put him up on the screen real quick so you can hear this short little thing. It's kind of a funny thing, but let's let you hear this guy. So this guy, he's going to speak on, there's a college kid who's going to explain to this Cuban worker about socialism, but he came to America and escaped Cuba on a raft. So check out this little quick video. It's like a little bit, like a 2 or 3 minute video. I'm gonna have to interject because I don't want YouTube to hit me with no bullshit, but just listen to how this goes. All right. And then we're going to go back to see what the women do under, or how the women live under a communist regime. So here we go. Let's take a look at this guy right here.
Hey, I'm Brett. He, him.
Hola.
Hola. Yeah, that's cultural appropriation. That ain't it, Chief.
Really? Isn't Chief cultural appropriation too? And secondly, I'm from Cuba.
That's awesome. I love your sandwiches.
So right now, they're already just showing you what college kids come out, and what they're learning and what they're being indoctrinated with. So In other words, you're a college kid basically trying to spit rhetoric to a person who actually lives something that the kid learned about. The kid went to school and learned about socialism and communism, but this dude actually lived it. And he's like, she, him, her, what the hell are you talking about?
Oh, it is pretty sad that those Cubans don't really appreciate the great social programs they've got. Am I right, Chief? I mean, person, Cuba, person.
Great social programs? What are you talking about?
Well, you know, like take healthcare, for instance.
Yes, we had healthcare, but it mostly consists of us rubbing dirt in our wounds. But my grandmother was able to build this pretty cool wheelchair out of an old washing machine.
You must be mistaken. I learned all about Cuba's excellent social programs in college.
See, his learning versus his experience. And even though this is a joke, even though it's a funny ordeal, it's actually what's going on with people right now, because a lot of these college kids, they look at capitalism and they're like bringing down the patriarchy, which I'm going to show you here in a second, which was kind of like the similarity of what was going on right when Lenin got in. We're going to take a look at how these two things coincide together, which is, it's weird, but it's crazy how these two things play together. And it's been 100 years. So there's a 100-year cycle that we're going through.
That right. How long have you been in college?
Half a semester. So yeah, I'm pretty much an expert on socialism. In fact, I'm inviting people to the meeting my group is having. Socialists undermining capitalist knowledge.
Ay. Tell me what else you've learned in college about my country, Mr. Expert.
Bernie Sanders taught me that Cuba has great literacy programs.
Yeah, we used to have to write, I will obey Fidel Castro 100 times every morning.
Also, Bernie taught me that the poor rose up and they stole the means of production from the ugly rich people. That sounds amazing.
We didn't own anything with regards to production. But what we did have, we had a 20-year-old anemic donkey named Gus. I do miss Gus, but he was delicious.
Yeah, Gus. So as you see, you have a college kid trying to tell this dude about experience that he had. And right now in today's world, you can't tell a college kid jack about how they feel about a social society, even if you bring them in front of somebody who's lived it. And that's basically what they're basically trying to give you the gist of. Now, let me go back to, where was the thing that I had with the women? I got to find it. Oh, dang it. Where did it go? So now we're going to take a look at go back and look at the women, and look at the women under Lenin's rule. So right here, we have right here the women infertility. All right. Yeah, we're going to go right here. Women infertility under Lenin. The state made explicit commitments to promote the equality of men and women. Does that sound familiar? Many early Russian feminists and ordinary Russian working women actively participated in the revolution, and many more were affected by the events of that period and the new policies. All right. So as you can see, the women are going to go ahead and go forth with this. They're going to be the one to thrive and push this forward, which is what we're seeing today. We're seeing the women be the driving force and pushing things forward. We just saw it over there in New York with Zoran, don't mess with the Zohan Mandami, where we saw the polls and it showed that the women ages 18 to 24 or whatever, 18 to 27, like 60-70% voted Mandami. Same thing with the men around the same age. They were predominantly voting. Like, the tides have turned, the times have changed. So we're going into the cycle of change from capitalist. Unfortunately, I don't think America has ever been a communist socialist country before, but I think we're going to experience it here soon at some point, and that's where I want you to take a look at. So as we see, it's beginning in October 1918, Lenin's government liberalized divorce and abortion laws, decriminalized homosexuality, but it got recriminalized in 1932, permitted cohabitation, and ushered in a host of reforms. However, without birth control, the new system produced many broken marriages, as well as countless of out-of-wedlock children. The epidemic of divorces and extramarital affairs created social hardships when Soviet leaders wanted to concentrate their efforts on the growing economy. Giving women control over their fertility also led to precipitous decline in the birth rate, perceived as a threat to their country's military powers. And by 1936, Stalin reversed most of the liberal laws, ushering in a pronatalist era that lasted for decades. And by 1917, Russia became the first great power to grant women the right to vote. After heavy casualties in World War I and II, women outnumbered men by a 4-3 ratio, and this contributed to the larger role women played in Russian society compared to other great powers at the time. So it shows right here, Russian and work, they participated in the revolution, and many more were affected by the events of that period and the new policies. Now, I don't know if they were affected in a good or bad way, but that shows them looking happy. So I'm going to assume that that's the case. But as you can see, though, this is strikingly similar to what we see today in the West. It's like a mirror image, a mirror reflection of what we see going on in the West. So that happened, that went down. Now, while all this is going on, while all this is going on, you always have to ask yourself in the background, you can never let a good war go to waste, or a revolution, or whatever you want to call it. With all this happening in the background, you must always wonder and ask yourself, what exactly is causing all of this to move forward? Because you can't do this without no money. You just can't, go without money. Now, I found a few people that had an interest in this. I found a few people, but two in particular, in my opinion, stood out to me. There were two people that really, really stood out to me. And I'm going to go with these two people right here. So first one I'm going to bring to you is going to be Olaf Augsburg right here. This gentleman right here, Olaf Augsburg. He was one of the people that was one of the people that helped finance the Bolsheviks during the Bolshevik Revolution. Olaf Augsburg, he was one of the people he helped finance. So he made out like a bandit. So whatever they needed, they had gold and stuff like that and all that good stuff. He was helping finance these people. So they came in with the backing of a bank. Okay, they came in with the backing of a bank, and once again, he's newish. All right, straight up, it's just what it is. I mean, not hating on him, it just makes sense to support your people. It shows him he is a Swedish banker. He financed the Bolsheviks during the Russian Revolution, notably by helping them evade an international gold boycott and facilitating funds during World War I through his banking network, which included the Naya Banking, a self-proclaimed Bolshevik bank. He later funded the USSR's first foreign trade bank. He also was a key financier who helped the Bolsheviks evade. Okay, they said that already. Okay, so he also helped the USSR first foreign trade bank. So he was a big help in that situation. So they had a bank backing them for sure. Now, also, you had another dude who was a help as well. There was another dude as well. This guy is called Jacob Schiff. All right, and Jacob Schiff, when you look at this dude, this is pretty amazing when you find this out right here. He was an American banker. All right. Let's see. He was a newish leader, and also he was also helping with major Jewish issues and problems. But I want you to also see right here, he became a director of many important corporations, including the National City Bank of New York, Equitable Life Insurance, Wells Fargo and Company, and Union Pacific Railroad. That's crazy how he was a part of Wells Fargo way back then. All right. And then we look down here. This is what I want you to see right here. It shows right here that he was also a proponent who was helping fund some of the Bolsheviks as well during the revolution. I think they had a falling out, though. They fell out. So basically what happened was he was over here helping fund them up until the revolution. He funded them prior to the revolution and right at the revolution. But then what happened was, was it Lenin and Trotsky or whatever? They seized the power for themselves. I think they just screwed them over with the money. They took the money and they just didn't pay them back. So they were getting money from different bankers. And then when they did that, Jacob Schiff, he went on a revolution, whatever, or anti-Bolshevist protest or whatever. Like, he just went crazy and went after him because it seems like they screwed him over. but he helped fund them leading up to that point, because, you know, he was all about helping his people out. Now, when I say his people, you had these people right here. You had this guy right here who was a lawyer who he was helping fund right here. This guy was a lawyer. All right. He was a lawyer who was basically helping the revolutions during the Russian provincial government. He was the lawyer that helped with the situation where when they won that liberal, I forget what it was called, the Russian provisional government, when they won that and everything was abolished, this was the group of people that abolished everything and everything had went away. He was the lawyer for that situation, as well as, and let me see, who is he? Who is he? And as well as this guy right here. Oops. This guy, Trotsky. Lenin and Trotsky, when they seized power, this guy right here, Lenin, him right here, he's of Jewish descent as well. Him and Lenin screwed Jacob Schiff over once they, you know, came into power, because they had a lot of money. Plus, they already had another dude that was doing banking. They had Olaf Ostwin, or whatever his name is, the other guy, and that guy was setting everything up. So they had two plugs. They had two plugs. They had, you know, this one and another one. They probably had more. We don't know for sure, but for sure they had two. But they screwed over one. They just kept rocking with the other one. You know, they used one to project themselves forward, and it was like, look, we're just gonna take all your money and we're just gonna play big bank, and then we're gonna use him to, you know, keep rolling things in, because you probably like him more than we like you. I mean, it just makes sense to me. So you can see that even though you can say some of the stuff is a conspiracy, I mean, it all lines up, but then at the same time, it almost makes sense because of all the beef they had in the past. Now, I don't know both sides of the story all the way down to the nitty gritty, but like I said, when I started the timeline at 1727 and brought all the way up to here, you can't help but just notice that, you know, it does look like, you know, the Jewish people were held back for a good long time. I mean, like I said, but we don't know what happened prior to that, but the Jewish were held back for a good while, a good long time, and kept pushing and kept pushing. And when finally they got the time to, you know, come with it, they came with it. But the Bolsheviks' revolution was not a pretty thing. The communism, the ruling under Stalin, all that stuff. And even with the ruling under Stalin, you have to think about this. This guy right here, Olaf Ashberg, he was the one that developed the first bank of, what was it, the Soviet Union, right? Yes, he was the one that developed the first bank. So when he put that bank together, whenever he founded the first USSR bank, when he put that together, you have to think about that. He's been around for a minute. Like, he had been in there for a good while. You know, like probably like a couple decades, he probably had ran through and was helping fund that entire situation, maybe along with other people as well. But for sure, he was in the background funding this. You know what I mean? And one thing you have to know about, you know, the U's, all the U's are not bad. You have good U's, you have bad U's. That just goes with anything. That goes with anything. So you can't sit here and just say all U's are bad people. They're not. But in this situation, when you look at this, they stick together and they take care of each other, which is smart. Stick together, take care of each other for the most part. And looking at how the revolution happened, on the back end, you see who was putting themselves in strategic positions and locations to make things happen, to make things shake, to make things move. But on the front end, who you saw, who you were looking at, it looked like Russian. That's why you have the Bolsheviks revolution under, you know, Russian, and then you have the Jewish Bolshevism, two different names for the same situation, because you have one group of people who you see it looks like them on the forefront, but then there's another group of people making things shake and move financially on the back end, because they're able to, one is able to literally control the whole society. Because remember, the Jewish were getting held down from decisions that was being made politically. They were getting held down from political decisions that were being made. They were like, hey, we put a law in for this. We're going to put this Pell agreement or Pell settlement down on that. You can't go nowhere. This political decision goes here. This decision goes here. And they was like, we got to put a stop to that. So they got in political positions. And then, you know, then some more got in on some other political positions. So they had the banking position set up for financing. You have the political decision set up for making, you know, military decisions. You had people in military. You had people in different areas of Congress or whatever different parts you want to call it for making political decisions. You had union workers. You had all these things going on, you know. And now when you look at it from the front end, the face of everything is going to be Lenin and Stalin. Now, with that being said, if we look at if we go and look at this whole thing, where is he? If we look at Lenin and Stalin, where y'all at? Where is Lenin and Stalin? We're going to find them. Lenin and Stalin, where y'all at? No, we don't need you. Let's get this guy out of here. The Soviet Union. All right, come on. Hurry up. I don't have much time. Because if we take a look at Lenin and Stalin, we're going to have to look them up exactly and see exactly, there they go right here. So if we go through the history to try to see what their background is, we have Stalin here. His parents were, let's see. Now, when we read that thing about Stalin, it stated that Stalin and Lenin, they both stated that they didn't have any Jewish in their history, which when I look it up, I don't see it. I don't. As far as Stalin goes and as far as Lenin goes. Now, there's some things that, now, if you do deeper research, some people say that some people say that it's in their background, but I don't see it. As far as the mindset and the ideology goes, their theology, their ideology, their philosophy, they're Marxist communists, you know, Marxist socialists. That's how they think. So their ideology, their theology is Marxism, socialism, communism. So they do fall in line with the group that we saw earlier in the timeline right here in 1897 that fell in line with the Jews right here, where the Jewish Bund was established, and it was a union of Jewish socialist groups. The party is the first to lobby for general political demands, as well as interests of Jewish workers. A number of other political parties are formed by Jews around this time. So this is the only one that we know of. All right. This is the only one we know of. However, there were other people in line with ideology. So now moving forward, you have a banker that's banking and funding them that is Jewish in the background. Well, then you had another one too, but he got upset because he got screwed over, right? Then you had other people that was leading the revolutions that was Jewish. Then moving forward, and you go deeper into when it finally got implemented to the USSR, and people who were in there with Stalin while Stalin reigned for like what, 20 years or something. How the hell did Stalin reign for a good minute? No, Stalin was in there for a good while. I don't know how long his last. He was from 1924 to 1953 when he passed away. So that's like 30 years. So he reigned for 30 years. So then when he left, he got out of office or whatever because he passed away. Oh my God, can y'all hear that? Somebody with a weed whacker or something. It's loud. Hold on. That thing is loud as hell. Okay, I think we're good. Can y'all still hear it? Because this thing is super loud. It's loud in my head. All right, well, we're going to go on from here. So if we go in and we look, golly, this thing is loud. Come on, man. Go away. All right, sorry, it's super loud. So if we go on with Stalin and we take a look at him, when he passes away, he is succeeded by this guy, Nikita. I can't say his name because I can't pronounce it, right? And he's in there from 53 to 1964. Okay, as we can see that right there. Now he goes in and he's in there from 19 to 1964. Okay, then he's succeeded. And he's succeeded by this guy. This guy's in there from 64 all the way till 1980. All right, so he's in there. Now remember, remember when they went in and did this Bolshevist revolution, they changed the entire structure of society from a capitalist society to a communist society. So when you look at these people that end up coming into office later, like for example, this guy right here. Let me see. When is your date of birth? Where are you born? Do we have you? Okay, he was born. This guy was born in 1904. Okay. This is 2, maybe 3 people after Stalin. This guy right here. This is 2 to 3 people after Stalin. He's born in 1904. They did the Bolshevist revolutions in 1917. So he was 14 years old. You know what I mean? Come on. So he was 14 years old if he was born in 1904, right? Born in 1904. So yeah, he was like 14 years old when the revolution happened. So when he was a teenager, he's seen things change from a capitalist to a communist society. So now for him going from 14 on up, his life is now in a communist society now. So that change that they implemented way back when is now still instilled in people's heads as they grow older in the society, that they drastically changed violently in that period of time. So even though people are coming up, they're still going out, coming into the system, perpetuating the system with the same ideology and the same mindset. And it even says here, he was born into a Russian working class. His father sympathized with the revolution, and he was conscripted into a labor army on the Bolshevist side at the age of 14 during the Russian Civil War of 1917 and 1922. After demobilization from the Red Army in 1921, Kosygin, this guy right here, Kosygin, him right here, the guy who succeeded in 1964 to 1980, Kosygin, let's see, he attended the school. He found work in the system. Let's see, then he reported Vladimir Lenin, which was cooperation, the path to socialism. So he has a socialist mindset indoctrinated in him. And what they do in a socialist communist society, from what I've heard, because I never lived in one, but I've asked people about it and how it goes in real life, and they all seem to kind of have the same. They all seem to kind of have the same answer, but not the same answer, but somewhat of the same answer. You are taught, you are bred like that. Like this guy said. This guy said it right here. He made it clear, even though it was a joke. He said it right here. This dude right here. Where is he? Where's the other guy? I gotta find the other guy. This guy, him. He said it. Remember, he said in this. The white guy was like, you guys have great literacy and great writing. He said, yeah, that's because I had to write I love Fidel Castro 100 times. So communism was like infested in his brain. He couldn't like let it go. Like they drilled him with it over and over and over and over. So that was in his brain. That's in his mind. So even though times have passed and things have changed, you still can't get over the fact that, where's my thing at? You still can't get past the fact that even years down the line, things still are gonna go in the same way that you want it to go as far as the party goes, because you have implemented that mindset into children even 50 years ago. You know what I mean? Like it's in them. You have bred it into society for a very, very, very long time. So then we keep going. And we have this next guy who falls into office from 1980 to 1985. This guy right here, right? And then we have the next guy who goes in, and he is what? Who is he? He is, let's see, yeah, nobody important. So then we go to the next guy right here. And this is the last guy, I believe, in office from 2003. No, this wasn't the guy I was hoping to see. Is it you? No, this ain't the guy. All right, here you go. Yeah, here it is. This is the last guy. Sorry. He was the last guy for the premiere of the Soviet Union from 1985 all the way until 1991 when it ended. His date of birth, he was born on 1929. So the revolution, he wasn't there for. He wasn't born. He was born directly into communism. This guy was. Now, maybe he didn't like it, or maybe he couldn't hold it together no more. Whatever the case may be, it didn't really matter. But him, in this point of view, the Soviet Union dissolved under his reign in 1991. Okay? Now, after all of that happened, all the bloodshed, all the wars, you saw behind the scenes how it was financed, how it was brought to fruition before the Bolshevik Revolution started. Then you saw the players that were kind of playing behind the scenes. And I gave you just like a little rough draft, a rough sketch. And then I gave you the timeline from 1727 to show you what the beef was between the Russians and the Jewish people. And to show you that even though if you're a Jewish person, it doesn't change the fact that you're always going to stick to your guns and your people behind the scenes. You're always going to work with your people behind the scenes because there's a big agenda that goes on the surface, regardless of what happens, because their religion reigns supreme in their circle, right? So with all that happened, all that go on, the Soviet Union dissolves in 1991. Here's the thing. Two superpowers, United States and USSR, were the two superpowers at that time. So on the east side of the world, the Soviet Union went from socialism to communism, right? It went from socialism to communism, and we should get a map to show how big that looks. Let's see. How big is socialism? Well, I guess I get a map later on. So we see the map from socialism to communism from the USSR. Now, when you look, here it is right here. Here's a map right here. Look how big this is, dude. Look how freaking big this is. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. This is freaking huge. Okay. Two superpowers, USSR and the United States. They were both as superpowers at a point in time. It dissolves in 91. Now, when it dissolves, check this out. I'm going to show you this right here. And this lady's going to tell you something. It dissolved in 1991. The same year the USSR dissolves. Check out what happens in the west side of the world. All right. We got a lady named Brigitte Gabriel. I've showed her before, but I want you to hear what she has to say. I'm going to play a quick little piece from her because I got it ready to go. Listen to what happened in 1991 on the east side of the world, when in 1991, the west side of the world, the USSR dissolves. Check this out. Here we go. Let's take a look.
Hand, the Muslim Brotherhood. I am holding in my hand the Muslim Brotherhood plan for the destruction of the United States, written 5/22/1991.
Did you hear that? Let's try it again.
I am holding in my hand the Muslim Brotherhood plan for the destruction of the United States, written 5/22/1991.
Written 5/22/1991. The same year the Soviet Union, USSR, dissolved. The same year that dissolved. Now on the other side of the world, on the east side, excuse me, on the west side of the world, now there's a plan that was written and put in action in 1991. Now, with that being said, remember when we had this right here? We looked at the Jewish Bolshevism, which is a conspiracy theory that claims that the Russian Revolution of 1927 was a Jewish plot. It says right here that It often in furtherance was a plan to destroy Western civilization, which is interesting because it's like, well, dang, what's the beef that the U.S. have with the United States? Well, I don't know. I can never figure that part out. However, I can tie things together with this. So here we have this right here. This shows Islam. All right. So this shows Islam. Islam is after the Bolsheviks revolution. Islam was for some time until 1921 treated better than the Russian Orthodox Church, with the Bolsheviks regarded as the center of the reaction and other religions. The declaration of, I can't say that word, of November 1917, the Bolshevik government declared the freedom to exercise their religion and customs for Muslims who believe in customs had been suppressed by the Tsar and the Russian oppressors. So remember, the Muslims were also being oppressed over here in the West, in the East, just like the Jewish were being suppressed at the same time. So they were not able to do the same thing. So they were both going through the same issue, the Jewish and the Islams. They were both going through the same thing. November 17th, the Bolshevik government declared the freedom to exercise their religion. Remember, we read about that. So they both got their freedom to exercise their religion because they had been suppressed to do so. So they finally were able to do their thing. As you can see it right here, they were able to do so. So then when you go on and you look further into it, you go, okay, well, what is the relationship between these two people? I'm glad you asked. So check this out. So in this document that I found this document which talks about, what the hell does this document talk about? This document right here. This right here. This document is called The Islamic and Jewish Laws of Usury, A Bridge to Commercial Growth and Peace in the Middle East. This is January of 1995, right? January of 1995. Now, remember, we just saw in 1991 what happened. In 1991, they already had their document to conquer the U.S. So let's read a quick excerpt from this. Let's see what we got right here. Where's page? Here it is. Okay, here we go right here. It shows right here. It says right here. I'll just read it. It says, despite century-long histories of both Jews and Muslims as commercial peoples, the usury laws of two religions forbid the charging of interest. And although many Muslims engage in interest-bearing transactions, the Islamic fundamentalists who most oppose the peace process view the law restrictively and have called for the abolition of riba in their respective nations. Meanwhile, in Israel, the Torah prohibition on interest is widely observed. Even though it is functionally evaded, a common culture and traditional ground exists between Muslims and Jewish people through the law of usury. This convergence of Islamic and Jewish legal traditions can play two concomitant roles. First, Jews and Muslims share an appreciation of and expertise in banking under stringent religion conditions. This sensitivity and experience could lead to substantial profit and economic benefit for the entire Middle East. Second, the very fact that the Jewish and Islamic interest laws are so similar suggests that the mutual opposition to charging interest could be of tremendous symbolic importance. The interest ban could serve as a reminder to the Jews and Muslims that they worship the same God and by extension help support a lasting peace. So as you see right here, as soon as the USSR fell off, over on this side, this lady brought in and showed us this document right here, which is the
destruction of the United States. And the Muslim Brotherhood plan for the destruction of the United States, written 5/22/1991.
That's in 1991. Well, this isn't in 1991, but this was written in 1991, the same year the USSR was dissolved. Then in 1995, they came together with this right here and realize that they worship the same God and by extension help support a lasting peace. So it's like, oh, let's get this money. They finna get this money. So it seems like, from my humble opinion, from what I've seen or from what I'm looking at and I'm just doing my research, they both were being oppressed and suppressed in Russia at the time. They were both being politically suppressed in Russia at that time. And then in 1917, they got unsuppressed. But then in the same year, the Bolshevik Revolution happened. Or conspiracy theorists would say the Jewish Bolshevism happened in the same year that they got unsuppressed. That all them holes that were put on them were abolished. And then at that time, socialism, communism took off. And during that time as well, when it took off, what also happened during that time as well? I'll show you. Let's also see what happened during that time as well. Right during that time, what also happened? Women under Lenin, they made explicit commitments to promote equality for men and women. I mean, think about this. Many early Russian feminists and ordinary Russian working women actively participated in the revolution. Now, these are the Russian women. This ain't the Jewish women. This ain't the Islam women. These are the Russian women. Think about that. And many more were affected by the events of that period. Beginning on October 18th, Lenin's government liberalized divorce and abortion laws, decriminalized homosexuality, and permitted cohabitation, and ushered in a host of reforms. However, without birth control, the new system produced many broken marriages, as well as countless out-of-wedlock children. But now, let's say we have birth control. Now you just got straight up harlots and whores. Now, let's go down a little bit further, real quick, as I wrap this up. What about the education? The education, they had, education of Soviet Russia. In the beginning, the authorities placed great emphasis on the elimination of illiteracy. So they changed all children from left-handed to right-handed. Literate people were automatically hired as teachers. By 40s, Stalin could announce illiteracy had been eliminated throughout the 30s. Social mobility rose sharply. So during that time from 1917 to 30 to 40, within 15, 20 years, they had on their education dramatically during that time. Not saying that they made it any better on the back end, but just that short period of time from 17 to, 30, 35, 40, the damage was done. It went from capitalist to socialist to communist. It was done. And then they were able to implement, their communist way of living throughout the education system. They broke them down. They broke them down and they used their women to do so. Because for some reason, a woman's biggest battle is a man. I mean, you can't tell me different. It just seems like it. The woman's biggest battle in her life is a man. And she's going to go with whatever man gives her what she wants. Now, take that same ideology and apply it to today. Look at all that for today. Look at what's happening today. It almost looks like the same playbook that's happening today. And with that, I got to go because then I got to do part 2 of this tomorrow. And we'll look at what's happening in today's society and how things are looking as far as are we moving in a capitalist direction or a socialist / communist direction. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. We'll see y'all tomorrow. I'll catch y'all later. Got to get up out of here. Love you. Take care. Peace.
Thank you for watching D. Elliott Fitness live stream. Goodbye.
game on lock, and I got the keys like Jay-Z. My fame won't stop, ain't the only thing I'm chasing. The game on lock. Jay-Z. I'm white no nigga in Austin, Texas. In the booth, slaying beats. I'd rather be in the studio than in jail or on the street. Talk to me wrong, coming off your teeth. Got that one hit to quit and knock you off your feet. It's big on, baby, I'm obsolete. Pockets chunky like cottage cheese. Real nigga, I just gotta be. Smoking weed that don't gotta see. Used to be a hustler prodigy. I love when people say they proud of me. I'm eating good, smoking broccoli. Taking over blocks like Monopoly. Only fuck the ones, that's my policy. Most of these hoes tryna cause a scene. Like niggas mad they not on the team. See, I got bread, then bought a dream. The game on lock, and I got the keys like Jay. My fame won't stop, but the only thing I'm chasing. The game on lock, and I got the keys like Jay. I'm white no nigga in Austin, Texas. In the booth, playing beats. The game on lock, and I got the keys like Jay. My fame won't stop, but the only thing I'm chasing. The game on lock, and I got the keys like Jay. I'm white no nigga in Austin, Texas. In the booth, playing beats. Counting cash and smoking green, can be blowing cloud like a smoke machine. Your bitch on my dick, she got notes to sing. Bumblebee ass, yeah, I know it's thing. I plug your bitch like a 6-string. Jordan with the bitches got 6 rings. Smoke till my bitch a split screen. The rest with pain pills and sipping lean. Riding dirty, but I'm extra clean. Lyrics nice, but I'm extra mean. All-star heavyweight like Wolverine. The bitch nice like she open me. I flip money like Clover G. Gang hustle like TIP. It's hard baby like D.I.G. Acronym like KRT. The game on lock, and I got the keys like Jay-Z. My fame won't stop, but the only thing I'm chasing. The game on lock, and I got the keys like Jay-Z. I'm white no nigga in Austin, Texas. In the booth, playing beats. The game on lock, and I got the keys like Jay-Z. My fame won't stop, but the only thing I'm chasing. The game on lock, and I got the keys like Jay-Z. I'm white no nigga in Austin, Texas. In the booth, playing beats. In the beats like RP, no hard shit with your artery.